Next on the agenda is Chair Howard, House File 4194. Welcome, Chair Howard, again. I move House File 4271 to get it before the committee with a recommendation that it is referred to the Housing, Finance, and Policy Committee. There are no amendments, so please proceed, Chair Howard.
Thank you, Chair Lee. This bill, like the presentation from the governor, is about housing infrastructure bonds and appropriating those bonds. This bill has a little bit more money than the presentation we heard from the governor's team. This bill would provide $500 million investments in housing infrastructure bonds. And what's important to note here, this is a bill that provides a level of investment that's consistent with the need. Housing infrastructure bonds, as you heard from the governor and Minnesota Housing's team, has been really the state's key tool to build affordable housing units, especially deeply affordable housing units. And last year, the legislature approved $200 million in housing infrastructure bonds. And those resources are life-changing, creating hundreds, if not thousands, of units, serving thousands of families, especially our lowest income families. And we know from the data that the needs continue to grow. More than 600,000 Minnesotans are paying more than 30% of their income in housing, and that's especially acute for our lowest income Minnesotans. And that's also where we have the largest gaps, where we're over 100,000 units short of deeply affordable housing. And housing infrastructure bonds really are our state's key tool to continue to build these homes that help meet this crushing supply-demand mismatch we have all across the state. I would note from the presentation from Minnesota Housing that even with our historic level investment, they're still saying no to 4 out of 5, 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 folks that come forward with proposals. The need is there. Nonprofit and communities and folks across the state are stepping up. They're saying we're ready, but this does require the public investment, and that's what this bill provides. Additionally to the $500 million investment in HIBs, this bill adds and clarifies a few new uses, including the use of funds to recapitalize affordable housing developments. This is particularly important for our developers that are doing supportive housing for our deeply affordable housing. Through the pandemic, there's been really a perfect storm for those developers of increased insurance costs, security costs, rent issues. Really, it's added up to be a really difficult scenario. We provided some resources to address those needs last year. This would provide another tool in the toolbox to help our providers stabilize and make sure that we're protecting units of housing for affordable units of housing. This would also add up a new eligible use for housing cooperatives, again, another tool in this instance for an affordable home ownership opportunity. Members, we made big investments in housing last session, but we are not going to solve our state's affordable housing crisis with one-time investments. We need to keep our eye on the ball and our foot on the gas and listen to Minnesotans all across the state that are saying we need to meet the moment, and that's what this bill represents. With that, I'll turn it over to my testifier.
Thank you, Chair Howard. And before the testifier proceed, do want to correct my motion that this is to move House File 4194 before the committee. Welcome. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Chair Lee, members of the committee, my name is Elena Gorder. I am the Chief Executive Officer with the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, or as we like to say, MCCD. MCCD is a consortium of nonprofit affordable housing developers and economic development associations across the state of Minnesota. I first want to thank Chair Howard and all members of the legislature for their historic investments in affordable housing last session. That investment is supporting the full continuum of affordable housing from rental assistance, first-generation down payment assistance, development funds for deeply affordable housing, and more. I'm here today to ask you to continue to build on this investment so we can make further progress in the state. As Chair Howard mentioned, housing infrastructure bonds have been so critical to helping Minnesota make progress towards our housing shortage. House File 4194 proposes to invest $500 million in HIBs so that we can address the structural imbalances in many of our existing deeply affordable state-funded assets and continue to make new investments in the development of single-family homes, housing cooperatives, senior housing, and other deeply affordable rental properties. Since HIBs were created in 2012, the legislature has invested over $700 million, helping permanently house 7,000 residents. However, right now, about a third of those residents are at risk of losing their housing. This is because affordable housing providers, not because, at no fault of their own, have been struggling to keep their developments open. Some of the examples Chair Howard mentioned, I'll add a little bit of greater detail to that. So there was a survey that was done by 29 of the 43 organizations that received short funds in the past session. And you mentioned rental arrears. Of those responding, they have over $11 million in losses in rental arrears alone. 38% increase in insurance costs, some as high as 50%. And so the challenges that many of them are facing are just stacking on top of one another, creating significant barriers in the state. So in summary, many of our state-supported affordable housing units need additional investment to ensure their longevity as deeply affordable homes. Plus, large investments from the legislature will allow our members to continue to develop new single-family homes, new rental housing, and with the addition of new uses, including housing cooperatives. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Members, any discussion? Seeing none, I will just include a few remarks. Really appreciate you bringing this bill forward, Chair Howard, and like I mentioned to you and other advocates, I think just want to put it on the record that as we make decision on, investing in infrastructure, I will hope that if we move forward with this bill with a recapitalization, that organizations actually have plans to address their own deferred maintenance. And for those that have been funded with state, funding for them, to really look at how are they going to have a plan to address their deferred maintenance going forward and not rely on the state to make the secondary investment in the future, because as we have seen all session, and I have a few bills coming up in future committee hearings to really address that conversation around how do we address deferred maintenance as a whole, and to make sure that we're not continuing to invest in assets that have received bond dollars before, when we have competition for all of these dollars for critical infrastructure in our communities. And so just really want to put that on the record, and really appreciate your work on this. Chair Howard, any closing comments?
Chair Lee, members, I appreciate the comments, and would just say that I think having long-term plan to stability is critical in this body of work, and I think that's where this legislation is coming from and where the conversation should continue. Providing a significant level of investment like this bill calls, I think, is a part of a path to getting there. This legislature has had a bipartisan track record of understanding housing infrastructure bonds, and hopeful this session we can move forward as well in that spirit because of just the utility of such an important tool we have to address our needs across the state. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Howard. I now renew my motion that House File 4194 is referred to the Housing Finance and Policy Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails, and House File 4194 is referred to the Housing Finance and Policy Committee.